The budget hearing of the Vigo County Council will come to order. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God. Count. I'm on the verge of the blue.
That's where I was a couple weeks ago. There was a lot of people cheering for it.
Good morning. I just go where I'm put.
Well, sure, can you see that board okay?
We'll
Have it
manage.
on the screen.
We'll manage. I guess, can you guys see anything?
No, we can see this one. Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay, do you want to rock and roll?
where do you want to start this morning? Anything in particular where we left off?
The last one I had that we did was a 4602 courthouse bond. We put it on hold. That's the last one I
Okay,
had.
I spoke with Miranda Busey yesterday morning, who is the DLGF rep. She informed me because we will be making payments in 2022, we can go ahead and levy it and budget it as we have been. And then the following year, we wouldn't levy it, but she did inform me that since we did have payments to be made, and she said, go ahead and levy it. The plan was, is if we did see towards the end of the year, that there would be enough to finish off to pay it off, and what's in the balance of the courthouse bond, that I could come back and maybe do an additional appropriation to pay it all out of courthouse bond then down instead of QCAP.
I accept a motion on that. Second? All in favor, aye? The motion carries. Okay, what you got next?
Then QCAP, of course, so these are levied funds, but you could look at it is as it is. It's the rest of courthouse bond payment as we explained. It's to help cover. Now, let me get you over. I'm getting used to this. Switched to computers, so now I'm
This is the 1138.
yes. This is the fund that she did say that you can leave at the same rate. After that, it won't roll off and then start to use it to save for any big project. Sure.
So if you can, and I apologize, I'm not following. So
I'm-
it is, this one is associated with the courthouse bond as
At
a,
this
like a reserve, is that what I'm understanding?
No, we do pay part of the payment out of there because what we levied for the courthouse bond in the past would not pay the whole payment.
Okay.
So, as far as the rate, so they had CCD,
And the CCD stands for what?
QCAP Development Fund.
Okay.
So this is the one you said that if we continue with it, this could be for future projects?
Yes, and it is the one I said that she did say you could increase the rate, but he made that quick answer as to
Maintain it, let it.
yeah. But she
Now-
did say after the courthouse one, you could increase that rate if you had development.
Is that specific, oh, thank you. That's what I needed. Is that specific projects to the courthouse, or can it be, I mean, is that kind of,
It can be used for any major project. It's just been used, make sure that, to help make the payment. for the courthouse fund. Yeah, not, yeah, you'd have to reestablish it for 2023.
is that, what was that, Jim, in 2023?
The courthouse bond is dropping off. You could take that levy and essentially move it to cumulative capital development for future projects. But that's something. Yeah, I mean, yeah, to keep that cash flow coming to the county instead of going somewhere else.
So really what I'm gathering, this maybe is something that should continue until we hit 2023? Is that kind of go through at that time? But that would be in 2023.
What she's saying, or what Maria said, Miranda said is you could leave it at the same rate that we have now and continue to collect in different projects, or you could possibly reestablish, like you said, increase the rate.
And it doesn't have, looks like it has this potential revenue of 4,992, right?
Are we allowed to
I
ask
think,
the question?
the commissioner has a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Kearns.
Commissioner Kearns, please.
Yeah.
But when that was set up, is there a sunset on it, or do you just automatically renew? In 2023, so you can just continue it? Okay, so that wasn't set up specifically for the courthouse project? Okay.
No.
Not like the jail, when it hits, it's done. This, you can just keep using it? So what, that's about 10 years ago we did that? For the courthouse, because I think the courthouse was done twice, right? There's an initial one, and then there's that uh-oh call where they needed more money? So that's the same fund? There was the original one for the courthouse restoration, and then there was an uh-oh moment. And that's paid off. I think it'd just be good for the new members to figure out what's paying what. And if it does, a lot of times we talk about how when taxes are raised for projects, that it will go away, and the public always says, and rightfully so, now we'll just keep it going. It sounds to me like this is possibly one of those moments, so it will fall off. So the courthouse bond's 2023?
No. Fini.
Done. Okay. So that opens up a considerable amount of money then, the 2022 fall off.
Right.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Whether to end it or renew it. Okay.
But at that budget hearing, a year or two from now, we can make a decision on that. Yeah.
So in order to, if you're going to reestablish it, that would be only to increase the rate. Otherwise, it can stay the way that it is.
Could lower.
You could lower it. But if it goes away, then you have to go through quite an arduous process to get it
Bring it
going
back.
again,
But,
which will require probably another referendum.
well, and you gotta remember, the Cume Cap is a good way for future projects to
Sure.
be done, funded.
Well, we're running into that now with a uh-oh moment with the courthouse where we need to find an extra $15,000 and it's not necessarily there. So, no, but that's a good idea. I'd like to be on a riverboat right now. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for your question. So welcome. Okay, moving along. Motion,
Make a motion to
second, please.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Okay. What do you have next, Mrs. Loudermilk?
Yes, now the decisions are gonna start coming down
What
to,
about the other polls we still have? Do any of those can press?
what one would you like to address?
I'm just, I had 4 other holds on, from the prior meeting. The 1152, emergency planning, right, I thought we had some clarification on that, but I still have it hold.
1152 LEPC,
Yeah.
that we did at the very end.
Oh, did we? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I still have this hold.
Yeah, we approved it. We found out that they really appropriate a lot higher than what they spend. Remember that
So we
conversation?
still
Yeah,
appropriated 29.
way higher.
Yeah, they appropriate way higher than what they normally spend in it. What's your next question?
Well, the
Todd?
other one was just my 1114, the
The lit-
bond payment.
The lit special purpose, that's
Yeah.
where I was gonna go. If you see in the, I don't know if you noticed the one I sent you this morning, I did adjust for the bond payment, so the 2,056,500.
Originally I had the 5 payment there, so you.
Right, and I've adjusted it. That one right there. And that's including if we spend that 5 million, and I would hope that there's no reason for us to have to spend that 5 million this year. That's the hold, that we put in there.
Jog my memory a little bit. What, on this special purpose, like what kinds of things would be?
This is the jail
This is the
bond.
jail specifically, okay. Okay.
And that's to make the payment January 2023.
Please, a motion. in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Two I have was 1170, public safety, and private public program. Can't do it now.
Yeah, report will probably be a conversation you're gonna have to have while you're
Down
doing
the
the
road.
rest of it.
Public safety,
Did we do that?
I had it hold, but again, it's not, it's just my notes.
Well, and I think that's because we have the body cameras in both funds,
Oh.
the general fund and lit public safety. So that's kind of where I was gonna say, we're gonna have to start making some, yeah. Just the list, all of it.
What was that, Calissa? Wasn't contractual?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you know, I guess for
We-
lit public safety, question could be if you're going to fund body cameras, I put it out that way. You know, what is pleasure and where to fund those from?
We can go ahead and decide that. I mean, we've got to
I
decide it
mean, that's up to
sometime.
you.
Let's just decide it.
Well, I would entertain that Bramble on it,
And if you had, if you end up getting other funding later that
tackle on that, doesn't matter, something like, I'm personally in favor of body cam funding. Just wanna make sure we pay it out of appropriate fund.
Yeah, because I think Sheriff Blassie said there's a grant that they're working on. We
that
won't
might be-
find out
that we
till,
might be able to get that grant back, and if we can, I don't wanna do something, we spend it out of account, can't put the money back. I don't wanna have it,
Just that,
Well, if we pay it out of general fund is a reasonable thing, isn't it, Jim? Or not? Are you? But, well, the grant?
whatever it is. But your general fund is being upon it,
Yeah,
basically.
then that makes a lot of sense.
So
What
you
you
have
think?
more,
Yeah,
I'm one that I feel like the more clear where it's coming from, if there's a very specific purpose to use that fund, because that's what it's been put there for. I know, obviously, you know, the records and stuff, but I think with a big purchase like that especially, to me, it just seems to make sense to come from that.
hey, you don't have to over-explain it to me. I'll take a motion on that.
If we, can you pull that up for us so we can see that we have appropriate funding in there if we
Right
do
there.
pay it out of that 1170?
Right there,
There it is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, we've
So
got
we
one.
should be fine, so. So then, by approving that, does that reflect that expenditure of the body cam out of that at this time?
Yes, that's budgeted.
Okay,
That 2,168,549 has the body cameras and it has the whole lit public safety.
And so when if we approve this, then you'll pull it out of the like the area
I would
for the
take it out
general.
of the general
Yeah.
fund so that you can see that.
I'll make that motion and that we approve the proposed 1170 lit public safety.
And I'll take a second, please.
I will second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the
Are you
motion,
okay with the other services and contractual services being in there as well?
And there's your budget.
Oh, yeah, because we know those two.
now ask that again, please.
The other supplies and contractual services, those were advertised in 3 different places, so is public safety where you want to take them from?
What were the contractual services, do we know on that? And is that something very specific? Again, I feel like if it has a specific, I kind of like it coming from that fund. but-
It's the 110,000 for the jail requirement. Those are contractual services for purchase of some of the equipment, is that what it was?
Here, let's go to, that was in the jail request.
Jail request.
Contractual services.
Arto, at,
I don't see it on mine. I
He
thought,
turned
I
one
had
in
it in
for
my
Lynn.
notes somewhere, but I don't see it.
That's why I put it in there.
What,
114. That's for vacancy.
Let me know when you find it.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking.
So I do have like a Form 1 from him from Lit Public Safety that is asking for the 6,000 and the 110.1 for other supplies and contractual services.
That's
That's why that's in there, but just for safe purposes, it was advertised in the Lit Correctional Rehab, just so that you would have your choice as to where you might want to fund
it's
that
just
out.
not
What
specific.
specifically it was for?
Let's see, I'm looking at his Form 1, so I'm gonna have to go back to his jail budget.
Yeah, just, see it here in the, in the form, it just says, contractual.
Signed by John. Go back to the jail budget. I thought that was in it. Okay, let me get back to the next.
Where's the jail? I'm on the sheriff, I'm on the sheriff right now.
Yeah, I saw the sheriff's on it.
I think it's up here.
I think it's the sheriff's request. So it's in the sheriff. Got me mistaken. Okay, so I need to get the sheriff.
Not in the sheriff's sale.
Okay, here we go. That's my mistake, and I put in jail. At least everything.
The other supplies, if I may,
Trying to get to it.
the other supplies day-to-day operation of the department requires the need to replace consumable equipment, including those in investigations divisions and patrol divisions. The department needs to be able to fund consumable supplies such as narcotic test kits, mouthpieces, and stop sticks. In addition, the investigation division continually utilizes DNA collection kits, camera supplies, and other disposable. Requested funding is $6,000. Contractual services, Caliber Public Safety Software, maintenance, $50,500. Edge Technologies IT support, $33,000. Taser replacement plan for a 5-year replacement, $11,000. Phone line connection to school liaison officer, $1,572. County panic button system, Gibson Tel data maintenance, $3,200. Lexipol LE policy manual annual maintenance and support, $94.63. Gibson Tel data phone controller software, $1,365, requesting $110,100. That's in the sheriff's sale, or sheriff,
Yeah.
If
My
I just
apologies,
found
it's
the
actually out of the
sheriff, I
sheriff's
think.
budget. I apologize.
Yeah, and to me, again, those sound really specific to this type of fund. So I think keeping it, kind of like what we said, you can't use this kind of fund for everything, so I feel like keeping it there and using it in this area makes sense.
I think we're good on that.
In the public safety, Maria, or I do have it advertised in the correctional rehab where we've taken other stuff out last year also. I just had it there also.
Which one has the?
Which is a better account to take it out of, Cheryl?
I would think public safety would be a better option than correctional and rehab.
I do too, it's more general. It's got a bigger balance, right?
Yeah, then we just have to adjust it.
Keep in mind your
Well,
correctional and
rehab
rehab
is-
maybe have for
We can't hear you.
operate-
We can't hear you, Calissa.
correctional and
Operation
rehab
jail.
maybe have to be used for the jail if any
Correct.
new operational expenses or anything come in, you're gonna have to hit that.
I think we could,
I like the idea of leaving it where it is and then just adjust the other ones that were advertised to be compensated.
Okay,
Leave
I'll
in public
take a-
safety.
So the motion we had in second and pass would stand then.
Yes.
Okay.
But good discussion, huh?
Okay.
That was 11/17 that we, 11/70 that we did that, right? Yes, sir.
And Commissioner Kearns.
Just a kind of an update on the jail. Our original target was to have the new jail in motion around June, to have the transition going. We've experienced a hiccup with some electrical work that may slow things down a little bit. It could actually extend it by a month or two. We're hoping to get on track. So just being very transparent with you, that when we're looking at the budgets, we may have some duplications a little longer than what we anticipated. So just something to be aware of. Hopefully, we still hit our goals, but we do have a slight hiccup right now.
So it's, the move date was right originally March 22nd?
That was the ribbon cutting, open the doors, turn the lights on date, but as far as actually getting the inmates from the one facility to the other after the employees have been trained and, soft opening, if there is such a thing for jail, has been established, it was the first part of June.
First,
Yeah, and that's still on track, but just letting you know that we are talking about a potential delay that we were not talking about 2 weeks ago.
Could I ask you what kind of hiccup
Sure.
you've had?
Labor shortage. It's hard to get the professionals needed in there to do the work right now. It's an issue that's endemic nationwide, so.
Did you put a sign in the window that said hiring?
We did a big balloon with telltales.
Good.
Yeah, no, we didn't do that.
No, gosh.
But no, it's, they're doing a great
Isn't that hard to
job.
imagine?
Yeah, nobody anticipated this. But we also didn't anticipate this huge growth in construction projects too that we're seeing, so that's good.
Indeed.
But that's where a lot of this comes from. So many good projects happening in Vigo County and surrounding counties right now, it's hard to get the people in.
it's not just a county, not even
It's
state,
state.
it's
It's nation.
not regional, it's national.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted just a friendly reminder to be transparent about that.
Thank you very much for that update.
Thank you, Chairwoman Wager.
So one of the other ones, drug court, I know we can't fix it now, so that was the only
Okay.
other one I had.
Okay. So, Cheryl, moving along. Thank you, Brenda, for finding that for us.
Where I buried my sheriff one, I can't find it.
Turn out.
Yeah, damn. That's where I knew it was, probably was. Sheriff's in.
So I guess the other ones are gonna start dealing, you're gonna have these other ones that's still gonna have a couple in it, but you're getting to the point where you really got salaries in here. So we can go through these if you would like, real, kind of quickly, like you have before, on the other line items to see if there's something that stands out that's big, that you wanna consider whether you're gonna let them purchase it or not. Or you wanna appropriate it right now or not.
Okay.
And deal with salaries, or we can start addressing that now. So like, when I go to,
Whatever your pleasure is, Madam
do
Chair.
you see what I'm saying? I mean, we
Yeah,
can
I
do what we've
understand.
done before, if you would, not line item by line item, but kind of to see if there's been a big change in any of your 2s, 3s, and 4s.
Let's do that.
You know what I mean, just to see.
We'll pull one up and let's take a look at it.
I'll look at county general. Or do you want to do a different one?
What
go
if we
smaller.
go, what if we go to, the other lit fund, the correctional rehab,
Yeah, I kind of have
or,
that one.
yeah, we need to get that done.
And I guess basically this one you could decide on the rest. I did take out those others, as you can see. The ones that you just decided to pay for out of public safety, those have been reduced. So what you'll see in there, the 100,000 is for community corrections. That's for your social worker and doctor that you have in there. That's whose salaries that are in there. So that's the request for them. The contractual services is community correction. The locks, audio and video is the 40,000. Now that is jail budget also.
The care of patients and inmates is also
In the care of patients.
in the county general fund.
Yeah. So these two are out of, this one's out of both funds.
So if I look at this one and I look at the 2021 expenditures, and for example, the item of locks, video, audio, there was 40,000 appropriated in 21 and $9,087 spent, and then there, the adopted budget was 40, and they're asking for 40 again? Okay.
Correct.
I don't, and I'm new at this, but I mean, I don't understand if there just was a one-time, there wasn't a need, but they think there will be.
I think it's more of a replacement issue. If they have a problem with a lock, that they need to replace one, not necessarily going in
And
and
don't know
putting all
when.
new locks
Yeah,
in.
they just don't
It's-
know when it
So
happens.
if something happens to a lock, then they have to replace it. So,
And they don't have lag time to replace them. They need to
correct,
have
they have to
money
bring
on
somebody
standby.
in from, is it Kentucky or something like that?
And then the same thing though, when we look at equipment new, we had budgeted, 276,000, we spent 119. Adopted budget, it drops down to 45,000, I don't. Can anybody explain that one to me?
I think I can explain something out of the locks. And it looks like, because they used to have them out of jail, when Casey has sent over the claims, they got put out of the actual jail budget. And that needs to be adjusted. That expenditure needs to be adjusted to this one,
So you
to 1233.
just paid out of the wrong fund, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
They submitted
and
it
they
out of the
had
wrong
an
fund.
issue every time they kept sending them over, and we were trying to catch them. So
Mm-hmm.
these are normally things I catch towards the end of the year, if I'm going through them, but the ones doing claims now are supposed to be catching all that. So, they have, to answer your question, Todd, they have spent the whole thing, and they normally do.
The whole thing on on which line item?
On the locks video,
Oh, they did spend the
they
40,
have spent the whole 40,000.
but some of it got paid out.
It will be adjusted. to
Oh,
Okay.
so
come
they
out of
have
this
a
one.
negative appropriation.
Yeah, they will be adjusted, and I'll
Okay.
get that done this
So-
afternoon.
Did that impact anything on the new equipment?
Yes.
Because I see something up there too on the jail.
They've expended that out
Yeah,
of the jail budget
those
too.
need to be adjusted. You might have done them after
After June
after the
30th.
June 30th.
Why not?
Because we did
Yeah.
catch some of
They're going
those
crazy
when we were going through it, so.
I just wondered if we would, on this one, if we did.
So the budgets
give
were
them all.
zeroed out in the general fund, but they still submitted a claim.
For the
paying
general
them out of
fund.
the general fund, when they should have been out of this.
And as I said, I believe we've already caught those, but this was printed as of June 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When I was going through the budgets, I was like, oh, hey, these guys, these need to be adjusted, so.
We might as well do it now.
do you want, just to step aside on this one to, you can get us an adjusted one, so we can, or do you
It
want?
doesn't matter, just, we might as well go ahead and do it, we know
They've-
what it
They've
is.
spent it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. They have spent it. So if your question is, have they spent it all? Yes.
Okay, well, but I mean, did they spend the 45,000? Because it showed they spent 119. Am I
Yes,
looking at
they-
that wrong?
Yes. They have.
They have, okay. All right. And then the only other one is the insurance. I guess that, they're requesting $8,105 on the budget, but they'd spent, and last year we had 48 or 43.
There's only one single, this supports those two employees that Community Corrections requested, and only one person has the insurance,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
the single. The insurance is based on, we can only take a snapshot, basically.
Uh-huh.
And so the insurance is based on who is on it when we took that snapshot, and we tried to do it after the July 1, after the enrollment. And so your insurances are kind of going to be what they are. I mean,
At that moment in time.
at that moment in time.
Okay. Okay.
So that's for all group insurance for all funds. That's the best way to do it, is we have to take a snapshot of who's on it. Otherwise, that'll be fluctuating, could be,
Yeah, any day.
yeah.
So then the only other thing is you said that we need to address the salary. This is like the first one we're addressing the salary on, correct?
Well,
Yeah, and I
And
guess,
care of patients and inmates too.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Cliff, I didn't.
Care of patients and inmates, in 2021, the $400,000 was split between the general fund, left it at 75,000, and funded 325 out of correctional and rehab. And in this year's budget, they have 400,000 in the general fund and 400,000 in the correctional and rehab.
Correct.
Through half the year, they've spent 19,580 and 136, so what, 205,000? Between the two funds.
And how much total between the two funds? Was that 800?
It's about 255,000, and it looks like they've encumbered or adjusted the budget by 120,000 in the general fund, so.
Yep.
That's one of those it's gonna be hard to predict and allocate on a care and inmate if we have one.
Well, in theory, when the jail opens, if it opens in June, July, that you start moving inmates over there, you shouldn't be paying to house your inmates out of county for the last half of the year, which they should all be housed here, and that's what this is used for. Now, you do have the exception of if an inmate is housed at a facility, it's a mental health facility or something like that, we have to pay for that. And that's why we left the 75,000 in the general fund, so it felt like that would be sufficient in future years.
this is just a crapshoot, I mean, you just don't know.
It is, I mean, and it may be best to just put it back at the 2021 levels, 75 in the general fund and 325 out of correctional rehab.
And that
and-
cuts a little bit, so.
It keeps it the same.
Okay.
I mean, it cuts your advertised budget because it's advertised at the whole amount in both places. But that cuts 325,000 out of the general fund.
Does that seem reasonable to you, Jim? Don't you think
If the jail
so?
opens up, we don't use it, you don't use
Yeah.
it, it's still there.
Still there?
I think considering, you
But
know,
you're
we're in a
prepared in
limbo
case it-
world.
That is the way.
Well, you don't know what's gonna happen in the first 6 months either,
Yeah.
or
I mean,
7,
that's
whichever it
right.
ends up being.
You know, they could all get, God forbid, COVID and holy cow and wow. And
So if I'm hearing right, kind of from all of you, just kind of keeping it the same as is, just to get through this year of transitions.
there's no way to know otherwise.
Jim, is that kind of what you're saying too?
address the budget part of it. We maintain on the care of patients, we leave it at 400, as they requested for the 25, 75 in, don't need it both places.
Right.
Right.
I'd like to see a directional rehab. We have to overcome it. We still just have to, only other piece I see is, hey,
Yeah, well, traditionally, care of patients and inmates was funded in the general fund. When we started having to send so many out, and it was large cost every year, you know, paying for them to be in other facilities. And when this tax was adopted, they shifted some of that expense to correctional and rehab. Now, once you've opened up the new jail, you have enough bed space, and it's really the only ones, hopefully, that have a mental health issue or a health issue that they're being moved out. And it would probably be best if the general fund funds that. So, but it's however you wanna do it. So it's 75,000 is what was estimated would be a normal amount. And that's kind of a placeholder.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So do we need to request the 400,000 or go with the 325,000 like last year and put 75,000 in the general? Is that what we're proposing?
Kind of like Dirty Harry, did he fire that?
And I think probably the biggest thing, the unknown is what are the operational costs of the new jail? So you want to be able to fund those operations out of that and not commit a lot of that.
I think we don't know. And
So we'll leave it in this one and then take it out of the general.
Do you wanna leave this one at 400 and take the general, or
You
do you
think,
wanna do
Jim?
325 and 75?
I'd just go with last year, 75 in general, and 325
Okay.
here, and move
Okay.
on.
All right,
I'm with you on that.
motion,
I'll make a motion to leave it as we had last year.
here a second. Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries.
So it says 30, that says 32.5, okay.
Okay.
Told Jim to do a different one.
Through the magic of television. Okay.
Keep it in, I'm going over here to fix together, so.
Okay.
Well, the
okay,
problem
that-
is
okay.
you've not determined what your increase or
Yeah.
what changes you wanna make to the salary, so you can't do those yet.
I was gonna say,
We,
you-
see, we
You've not
can't
addressed
do
what-
it all at
That's what I'm
once.
trying to.
that's what I was gonna say, you've not
We
addressed
we don't
it,
do them one
so-
at a time, we'd be here till doomsday.
That's why I didn't know, I thought you said once we get into the one's salary, then we have to address it. That's all.
I was gonna say, you gotta decide what salary.
We just do it, see. Except for ours, we same as last year.
I'll look at it.
Okay, whatever. You go to next.
Yes, is that a yes or a no?
Vicki, it's up to
You
you.
wanna
Yeah,
look at it,
Sure,
Vicki?
that's fine. Just roll them out. We gotta look at them sometime. Just get it
Okay.
over with.
We're in edit 1112.
You have two commissioners here, that might be a good idea.
Absolutely, and they're so happy about it.
Look how eager
Ed,
they are.
Oh, look at him, how handsome.
We're looking at
Edit?
edit.
I asked them if they'd like to discuss edit.
It is. And a mighty handy bit of money.
Well, and that's looking, I know you guys have recently been working on the demoing of houses and issues, so it looks like the funding for that's increased from last year. It was from 95 last
Demolition.
year to 200,000 this year for code enforcement.
The request for it.
Yeah, the request. You guys, I was gonna say, but you have quite a few on the list though, right?
We're averaging about $12,000 a tear down. Whereas when I started doing this, we were getting them done for about 8,000,
Yeah.
and then the cost just kept going up and up. So Terry Bays, our new building commissioner, is what the title is, gave us a task of picking out our top 5 of our list of about 20 each. My list started when I started, and I inherited a lot of those properties. I've cleaned up maybe 10. I still have a long way to go, and made a social media post yesterday, 2 days ago, which resulted in more, hey, will you come out and look at this needs tore down. If we just do 5 in each district, we're at an average of about $180,000. And a common sentiment from people is chase grants for this. Well, the grants aren't there. We hear about what Sullivan did. We talked about what Mayor Pete did up in South Bend, the 1,000 homes in 1,000 days. There was money for those programs. It's simply not here. You are our money for these programs. This is a good opportunity, as we do have a decent balance. We may not enjoy that same balance in 2 years. This is a good opportunity to use some of those funds to do an aggressive cleanup. Does that sound fair and accurate to you, Commissioner Morris? I just think that, just even from our last meeting, our cost increases have been higher than what we anticipated. And a really interesting thing, 'cause we're both involved with the fairgrounds, to get certain type of asphalt shingle disposed of properly, you could look at, what was that, 3,000 square foot building, $54,000? We got it for less, but it goes to a certain facility. So that's something that we'll run into too. If there's asbestos materials in these structures, then we're gonna have very high disposal costs right now, because those costs for hazardous materials have gone through the roof. Everything has. So let's take this opportunity to ask for $5 million. Thank you.
Well, let's just say no. How's that?
That's fine. We'll settle
Okay.
for 3.
Optimistically, I think what we're going to do is interject ourselves in some of these places that burn, and we're getting cooperation from our outlying fire departments to make a claim on insurance settlements. And we're finding that the county's been damaged or been hurt on some of those instances where people have taken the settlements on burned homes and then moved on to someplace else and left the home there. So we're getting some cooperation there, and that should help, that we can get in there and get insurance to pay for some of these things, you know. It's kind of interesting that we found homes that were burned down in very nice neighborhoods and people just walked away from them. So, any rate, hopefully we won't have any fires, but if we do, we'll be in there with trying to get the get the problem remediated in a proper manner, I guess. So we're making our money go a little farther.
I do have a question on that. Is, and I don't know this answer, so I'm going to ask this, were training facilities and control burns is not an option in any of these locations? I didn't,
Yeah.
that's why I was asking,
Yeah.
I just didn't know. Okay, and so then when are these properties, and I think I know the answer on this, so not all these properties, the county controls them because they're a tax sale. Some of these are still owned and still taxes are being paid on, but there's just been an outcry for them to be public safety or just eyesores, or what is the?
It's a combination of things, but interestingly, there are some properties that have gone through tax sale, that there's some things that we don't necessarily agree with, but that gets out of our control. Should I go into, you know, we have people buying properties out of tax sales, rent-to-own kind of deals, a lot of out-of-town property owners. They rent the property until it's dilapidated to such a point that the people move out, and they leave us with some really pretty nasty places. And again, we're finding some of those in neighborhoods that are pretty nice. They're running down other neighborhoods, so we're trying to get after that, and it's just hard to hold some of these other property. I mean, we put a lien on their properties on there again, but you know, you got to definitely have to go through the legal procedures to manage it correctly. But that's kind of an interesting dilemma around the county.
And the only thing I was getting on as I asked this, when you guys submitted this, is there any thought process on, some of these are tax sales, so the ones that are privately owned, I understand that's a different dilemma. But if they are ones that they've gone back on it, do we offer, before we tear one down, would we offer it up for tax sale as is, so they buy it and rehabilitate it or tear it down themselves? If it's a desirable property. Okay.
Yeah, that was,
You,
yeah, they have a redevelopment commission, but it was set up, there was a grant through West Central that would tear down houses, so they set up the redevelopment West Terre Haute to be the recipient of that money.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was taking too long. There was appropriations made for several years. Nothing was happening.
that was the West Central. The West Central portion of it working on those grants for you, and there is a lot of red tape to that. Now, I don't know what's out there currently, as far as grants, but that's the one that Jimmy was talking about that was set up and West Central was handling. Callissa's right, it was taking,
We were spinning our wheels.
yeah, quite a while.
Oh. Okay, good. They have to be paid. You can do it. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys here explaining it, because I mean, it helps us learn it as well.
Well, I think that when we look at these numbers of properties, this is some considerations we take to prioritize them. You know, what will it do for the area? And is there a neighbor that will buy that and pay the
Right.
property taxes on what have you? So this is some of the considerations, certainly, in looking at tearing anything down or removing it.
Why?
Right.
They don't want it.
I don't think I want that program on myself, but. Yeah, yeah. So, while you guys are up there, do you mind answering on a couple of the other ones, like contractual services, doubling?
Yeah, there's two different areas. There's one contractual services planning, and then one's general contractual services.
So as a reminder,
Sure.
this was the first exercise of county. Even though the there's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing some things. You know, you can fund them or not fund them, but, you know, one of the considerations we had was this minor roof project over here on 13th Street to keep our clerk's documents dry. And I think we've been considering that for 5 or 6 years. And we brainstormed and tried to figure out something to do. We talked to some other property owners about relocation, talked to the clerk's office some length on length of time and what that would take and what they'd need to budget to move those documents. And when it all came down to it, we decided to put a roof on the old building and let it fly for another year or two and keep our documents dry. And it was $70,000. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of documents.
But
I saw
we
that-
couldn't.
And so is that roof, is it on?
It's on. I checked on it this morning. They're finishing up with the metal around the top of it.
I was
to-
over there
around
and
the
looked
edges.
at it with the clerks, and it was, they had plastic on over all of the records when I was over there.
Isn't that something? That's been that way for years.
That's what they said, yeah.
And
It's
so
ridiculous.
these
So
commissioners
which,
acted
that
on
one
it.
came out of the capital improvement budget? What did that one, where did it come out of?
No, that's not in next year's budget.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
so-
What we looked at, we didn't study.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we were one,
Something like that.
yeah.
Said a lot of them come out of the attic. No. Yeah.
Okay,
Wait,
we'll
let's
just
wait
be
till
in
it's hotter.
recess till you get back.
Let's wait till it's hotter. So what about this one, she said is you've got contractual services, where we see 21 budget's expenditure was 3,000.
Cheryl wants to say something
sorry.
to you
I was
first.
gonna say, it might come down to, Calissa and I explaining a couple of these to you that come out of the edit budget for history-wise.
Oh, sure.
That the
Yeah.
commissioners sometimes don't even realize that got stuck in there.
Oh, yeah.
Contractual services planning, you look down at the 400,000,
Mhm.
that's always been, now, they might want to stay up here because they've all been part of it, but the contractual services planning was something a few years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, Calissa. That is a edit reimburses county general for area planning
Okay.
budget. They chose to fund it out of edit, so that's a reimbursement. So that's what that is, and the last couple of years is basically the total amount at the end of the year is what is. And their budget averages 400,000.
Remember that, Vicki? We didn't have enough money in county general, so we took it out of edit.
I do.
Okay.
Sometimes that's the only place you can get money.
So, and that is included in part of your revenues of the general fund. So I guess if you chose not to fund it from here anymore, it is appropriated because their budget's appropriated in the general fund. We would adjust your revenues for the general fund, so you could see where you were at. So that is what contractual services planning is. Contractual services other, we've always requested 150, and we'll probably may have to adjust that, I don't know, but we've always appropriated 75, and that is what helps fund the engineering budget. Normally 75,000 from edit and 75,000 from Hume Bridge funds the edit budget.
So there's not an explanation why it's went from 75 to 150 then?
We normally advertise 150 to make sure that we have enough advertised, and then we kind of see where the engineering budget is.
Okay.
And if you look at the engineering budget now, you can stick with the 75 out of both Bridge and edit.
Yeah. And
It
that's
still
kinda why
leaves an
it's
operating balance of about $30,000, and since the revenue stream for this fund is Cambridge and edit, there's no sense shifting money over unless they really need it.
Correct. And then the contractual services for the 150,000, I believe the commissioners and the auditor spoke about a capital improvement plan
Yep.
with Baker Tilly, so that's
Yeah.
what the 150 is.
We got our capital improvement plan through the engineering. We got capital, we got our plan that you implemented, right, Jim?
That's under professional services.
Yeah, for your auditor's office. And so we're trying to get some ideas and get some professional, no guarantees, get some guideline, get an outline for doing these things. We were just thinking about the area planning. We had a thought, but I'll keep that.
So, that's on that's the one up here on item for capital improvement budget at 150. And it's for, if I understood right, and I don't remember the number on the Baker Tilly, but was it around 63,000? And then.
No, that's compensation.
No, I think the Baker Tilly for the capital improvement plan was what, 120 to 150,000?
Oh, I hadn't seen any paperwork
Yeah,
on that.
this is different than
Yeah.
like the
Different, it's a
HR.
different one.
This is a 5-year
Yeah,
capital
this is
improvement
totally
plan
different than
for
the
the
Their
county.
plan for their.
Same
for
company,
the
different
county
thing.
Based
here.
Yeah.
on just
Hey, and we don't have to spend it, by the way, if you appropriate it.
Yes, you better.
I think we need a plan.
An expert.
Yeah.
Experienced people. Experienced people.
We bumped
That's
this
no
one up.
joke.
You guys
Well,
round
you
it
have
up.
150 in the financial plan, you have 40.
But I believe this is where you had spoke with them about trying to do the 5-year plan, and maybe that was going to help you with the plan for the spending of your ARP funds, correct?
No,
No,
that's to
no,
fund
that
the
just-
engineering budget.
We're on this one right there, your capital improvement plan where you spoke with Baker Tilly about like doing a 5-year plan. It's on down. Oh,
40 in Thorpe?
I thought that was the whole thing.
They
That's
clearly
hilarious.
don't know
There's
what
40
they're
in Thorpe.
talking about.
That's Larry's.
Oh, yeah, right.
To add to the confusion, last year when you appropriated for the financial plan, what they have under professional services, we thought that was for the capital.
Which line's that?
If you look at professional services, 37850 at $60,000 last year. You, everybody thought that that was for the capital. Yeah.
Wow.
So is this capital improvement plan that we're working on with Baker Tilly, it sounds like, is that gonna kind of unify things?
I think that's what
Kind of put us all on the
pulls
same
it
page?
together. Larry's portion of it, which I think that you've got here, is, you know, to get estimates for projects that he's got in the works over, you know, the next 5 years or whatever.
Because that was one of my
To,
things.
to have a number to put in the big
Long-range.
long-range
Yeah.
financial plan.
Because that was one of my issues, like just when I first started looking
Yeah.
at
I
running
mean, you
was, we
can-
needed to have.
we can-
Absolutely.
I had here in my notes from when you presented the budget that I'd like to see some kind of itemized plan of this capital improvement plan. That was my note was. And here that, I'm sure you guys do have plans, I just don't know what it is. That, of this, that line item for 150,000, I just didn't see it itemized. I didn't know where I'd find that.
So
Maybe I wrote itemized because there is.
Yep, they presented it.
no, there's nothing.
That's 150,000.
Yeah.
West Central has it.
We
Yeah.
have West Central and Parks. That's all we have.
You can get a copy for us.
Thanks. Maybe Jim has.
I can hear you, but I don't know about the recording. That's up, I'd
So
defer.
a lot of these studies are very important with roads because in the past, we joke about how roads were paved. Now we actually use data. So we pay engineering firms to come out and do a rating system, 0 through 10 is what they call the PACER, P-A-C-R system. And then there's also one for bridges too. But we look at that data to figure out where to put our money. Something also to be aware of, when I started just 2 years ago, to pave a mile was about $79,000 a mile. Now I think our breakdown's $91,000. In 2 years, it's gone up $20,000.
Because of all those plans you have to pay for.
Well, that's what the asphalt company's charging us. What the, the latest that came in, the breakdown was about $91,000 a mile. So you look at East Davis Avenue, for example, up in northern part of the county, you're looking at 6 miles. That's almost $1 million project now, after you do culverts and stuff like that. When you split Edit up 3 ways, and we traditionally get about $1 million per district to work in, I'm only getting 6 miles of coverage now, whereas 2 years ago I could have gotten 8 or a little more. So that's changing too. But having these studies done, if we invest $60,000 to $80,000 in a study, that helps us make sure that we make the right decisions on what we pave and or what we chip and seal or what we keep as gravel.
Yeah. And I'm totally prescribed to that same thing. That's why I'm asking these questions, is
Yeah.
because if there's a $150,000 line item and it's for contractual services for planning, what kind of planning are we planning?
Yeah, it's just.
And that's all. And I think we're only trying to do, as I've been reminded a few times, we're council, we just take care of the money, you guys make the decisions. I'm good with that. But we have to know what the money's going for.
I knew that was going to come back to get me.
Here's a question for you.
It's a partnership, bud.
It is.
Mr. Commissioner, here's a
Brent.
question for you. Why has that cost risen so much, in all seriousness?
Well, they'll say materials cost, but our local company, Wabash Valley, was purchased by Milestone, and realistically, that there's not much competition.
Because they can.
Because they can.
Yeah.
But let's assume, and I don't want to come, it's a tough thing to answer. I said that because they can when I was up here and we did our first bid opening and nobody else bid. And I thought, why is this? So I actually contacted other asphalt companies in the area to say, hey, why didn't you bid on this? Well, those other asphalt companies aren't in the area anymore, but just in 2 years. So what you have to look at is if they've got plenty of business. They're doing the Highway 63 project right now. What we've agreed to do with them is we're on their schedule, at their mercy. Our paving projects just started. These are projects that traditionally would have started probably late spring. But they have so much business that as they wrap up the other projects, then they're coming to us, which in turn we supposedly get a favorable rate. So while it jumped up $20,000, in theory, we could be paying less money than what it could be for what the state's paying or somebody else is paying. But we're on their time. We can't say you're going to hit East Davis the last week of August. They're going to tell us we're going to hit East Davis in August, September, or October.
What a great place to start an asphalt business.
Good luck. I mean, that's just, I don't know how, when I've seen so many of these companies go out of business in the last few years, I don't see how it's going to work. And then these companies own so many steps in that process.
Well,
of
I
making
don't see how
asphalt.
we're going to pay for paving roads here before too long.
Well, and last year we did a record, I wish Larry was here, but 64 miles, does that
Well,
sound
I'm aware
right?
of that, but I mean, what about 3 years from now? How much are we going to have to raise taxes?
I will say that, I will predict, you
don't
can't
pay
because it
taxes.
doesn't, so what we do here doesn't impact that. What the money you give us does, but yeah, that funding comes from state and fed, it doesn't.
Well, you know what? We pay state and fed taxes.
I know, but I realistically think, Vicki, if I were to predict 64 miles last year was a record year, and I could be off a few miles on that, I would say in 3 years, we'll be excited to get 20 miles done of paving,
Keep in mind, a lot of your paving's being done by community crossing.
which there's talk as to whether or not that's going to continue.
Yeah.
And so if community crossing goes away, we're out of luck.
Well, then we've got the gigantic infrastructure. money
Yeah.
coming down, but I mean, what's
Well,
that
with
gonna,
the
it's gonna
ARP
be
funds,
reduced tremendously.
we can't use it. So that with the, unless, Jimmy, I think Mike told me you gave us an update on ARP funds, but originally they said ARP funds can't touch roads. But here's how
think
you
what-
can do it. If you have a sewer underneath there and you go to repair the sewer because that is allowed, you're
Then
gonna
you
tear
can
up
fix
the
the
roads.
road.
So then you can put new asphalt on top of that sewer, but we don't
Careful
have that in the
planning.
county. So ARP funds, that $20 million that we're getting,
I think what Vicky's talking about is the infrastructure bill that's going through Congress
Right now.
now, which
oh,
isn't.
Yeah, trillions
Finished
of
yet.
dollars.
for like the Amtrak line and stuff like that. Yeah, that'll be great. And if we can get that, it'll be a huge windfall. But, you know, we have to set a lot of money aside. Community crossings are 50-50 for us. So $1 million, we have to have $500,000 sitting somewhere. And we're strategic on our ask when we do community crossings. What helps us get to that strategy is by having data performed by an engineer. Because if we just say that Mike and Brendan drove the road and our trucks rattled, so the road needs to be fixed, the state's gonna tell us to go look again. When we have actual data from engineering firms that says, hey, this is what you need to do, this is what your rating system is, we are more apt to get those awards. And we've been very successful with our awards, with the exception of last year. Last year, we didn't get as much as what we anticipated, or this year, this last round. But there's reasons for that. We're still tracking well. But, you know, all of us, when we campaign, we talk about our roads. Everybody in here has done it. We have made so many improvements in the last 3-4 years. Our roads are really in good shape. For those of us that do go out of county, which is everybody in, you notice a difference. And Clay County at one time was a shining star for the state. And I don't know how they did it, but they must have got an influx of funds, but they paved everything. But you know, roads, country roads, if you pave it today, in 10 years, you're gonna be giving it some major attention. With the PACER system, yeah. Yeah,
And they can't come at that.
yeah.
What are you gentlemen looking at as, other than highways now, roads and highways, as your major concern
Drainage.
from us?
Drainage. And it is, I tell you, that cost is enormous. So Lakewood subdivision, we're doing phase 2 of Lakewood subdivision now. What we're having to do, or we have been doing, is traveling the neighborhood, looking at drainage issues. I've had residents send me pictures yesterday after the rains. We do drainage in that neighborhood to protect our roads. The drainage there is not our problem. It's the subdivision's problem. The subdivision that the county approved at one time, you know, drainage plan was done. But over the years, residents have altered their drains. If they didn't want to have that dip because they didn't mow the grass nice, they would have gone their own, put their own pipe in. But those pipes would get silted in, and that would cause problems. So what we're doing now is correcting a lot of those issues to protect our roads, because water is the number one thing that destroys roads. It's not the vehicles. Water gets in there, it moves the asphalt, it freezes, it pops it, and off it goes. But Miami Gardens, big project along there. The East Davis thing that I've mentioned, we had to do a major culvert project along there before we could put asphalt.
So is that something that we're gonna be having to appropriate money for?
It falls all within the transportation budget, but yeah, but that's where our biggest cost is going to be. Taking out roads, it's drained. And then the grade all machine's $500,000. Then you've got to have the skilled labor to operate it. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but at the amount of money that we pay, it's hard to get skilled operators for those machines. We talked about the possibility of contracting all that culvert work out. You know, is there somebody locally that could do the work for us? You know, those are things that we're looking at, but that's going to be your next big project. Well, and it's because it's a 75-year rule. Culvert pipes, our big project was done 75 years ago with metal pipes. They're collapsing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going in and replacing the pipes that were installed 75 years ago.
Alrighty.
I mean, now, I don't think the commissioner 75 years ago had a budget set aside for this. Now, Calissa, if you know where that fund is, let us know. I thought that was.
I think that, well, again, and this is handled 3, 4, 5 years ago, they started a drainage side crew at the county, and they've been keeping up with it. Since we've had community crossings, and that's been what? Is this the 5th year for community crossings?
I think.
All right, and so that has increased because we have to put those culverts in ahead of the paving. Obviously, we don't want to get it paved and then have to go put a new culvert in. So and they've been keeping up with that nicely. So I guess the short answer, yeah, we've got a lot to do, Vicki, or we can do, but I think at this point we're keeping up.
Battle for us at gravel roads, and it's not as easy as just taking a gravel road and paving it or chip and sealing it. Used East Swalls as an example. That's the one that's near the Bird Gibson Recreation Facility that heads east into Clay County. You can't pave it. The way that the ground is out there, it's not stable enough, so if we were to pave it today, it's gonna be tore up within 6 months. So that's why you have a lot of gravel roads. River bottoms, as Brenda knows, pavement would not work out very well out there because if you lay it, the river's gonna come and it's gonna literally take it away. So, you know, we invested with the council's help, $600,000 for 2 graders, or am I 300,000? $400,000, I think, for 2 new graders. We've got 4 graders total, and they're working all the time, just keeping the roads maintained. But if we did a lot of work on Friday, the rain that we had yesterday down in Brenda's area would have made it in bad shape again today. So there's going to be a constant maintenance there, and your cost there is going to be the gravel, having to buy the gravel, the materials to keep putting down. So just something to touch on.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Morris, Commissioner Kearns, one of you want to give a quick explanation on what community development is? What you spend that on?
So that, I'll go ahead and do it if you want, Mike. We started that fund, we the commissioners, 2 years ago, a year ago, kind of as a fund to help organizations out in need. Instead of coming to the council and saying, hey, could you, you know, give us $20,000 out of edit to help CODA, the council worked with us to just establish a fund so that we can use it at our discretion. And that's what we did the first year. We looked at agencies that were helping out homeless, food banks, women's shelter issues, and 14th and Chestnut was one. Those are groups that we've given money to, usually $10,000 and $20,000 increments.
Definition of what the council's job is to do is to be financial, but then we just pass it over to the commissioners and let the commissioners do it? Is
Yeah.
that what I understood?
Yep, we did. We set the fund up at the with the partnership with the council, so that when those times come, we can just cut them a check, versus having to wait a month or a meeting and then a follow-up meeting.
And then, but then its funding is changing the level to what?
The request has changed from 100 to 200 this year.
And you've also added the riverfront development, so it really takes it to 250.
Yeah. Did we add that on top of that, or is that inside the community development? So
It's on
riverfront
top.
development's in there? So here's the riverfront development thing. I'll go ahead and cover that one, Mike. You good with that? Or do you want to do it? The, so Riverscape did a plan 10 years ago on basically how to improve this area, the area that we're in right now, by taking advantage of the river. And that plan is outdated, so they're looking for a funding source. So we've been talking to them about providing them money to cover the cost of the plan. Historically, the commissioners, with the council's blessing, provided $50,000 a year to Riverscape. When the jail issue surfaced, that funding was stopped. We have helped Riverscape in some ways. Calissa and I, and a few others, found some money that was kind of hanging out, and that money was used to help with Riverscape's acquisition over on the other side of the river for Bicentennial Park, which is actually the Parks Department. But we've still been a partner with them, but this way we can give them the funds to do that plan, which benefits the county as a whole. They're just the entity that is sponsoring the plan. We could sponsor it, and we've actually talked about doing that. The commissioners can do it with your blessing, but Riverscape's already on a mission, and they're doing it well. I think it's best just to have them do it. So
What
that's
is
where that
what
comes.
is the plan, if I might ask? Could we see it?
Well, I can.
Yeah, you're on the board.
Well, I'm on the board, and my husband was the one who did the original. It was actually, I think, 14 years ago.
Was it that long?
Yeah, I called and asked him about it. He's been at Center Point Effect.
That was with HNTB.
Yeah, HNTB. So, it was a plan that was very well developed on how we can improve economically, source-wise, but so much has happened since then, the development of like art spaces and other entities have as well that they need to update. And usually it involves around potential projects, possible purchases, all kinds of things. And I will say, I've only been on the board since June. I am blown away with how active they are. I think staff and we see all the projects that just in that short range of times. The county parks department's gonna go.
In reference to that, expanding on that just a little bit, one of our large projects, this walkway to West Terre Haute, it had been mentioned more than once that the material that the Riverscape developed was very instrumental in securing that funding for that project at the state level. And, you know, I know Senator Ford said that if he hadn't had that, he just didn't believe he would have gotten the funding for that. So I can't tell you exactly what all the benefits will be from these plans.
If you guys would like to have somebody from Riverscape, Michael Shaw, who's the president of it, to give a presentation to you, we can definitely do that. It's something that a lot of people are involved with, very proud of. But this does help with that partnership and that we can provide funding. Historically, the city has stepped up to help out. I'm not sure, I know that the desire is definitely there. I'm not sure if it's something that's being discussed or not with the council. But we want to do our part as a, leader in the county to help them, because it's a countywide initiative. This also helped guide us too with our IP property on what we could do with that. And as we all know, Tim Drake with the mill, Tim and his wife Kelly have done a phenomenal job on getting that going. Ideas like this came out of that plan. That's not why Tim did it by any means, but it was something that was envisioned 14 plus years ago. Which actually, when you go even further back, this came out of a Terre Haute Tomorrow discussion, which I think if anybody was involved with that was 20 years ago. But, there's one of the things that we discussed about in our Riverscape meeting last week. There's so many plans out there, as we just talked about before this, and they all sit on a shelf of good intentions. The Riverscape plan is one that we can say this is really working and has been beneficial. So if it wasn't something that I believed in or you believed in, we wouldn't be up here advocating for it by any means. But the fund was born out of CODA's needs. Do you recall when CODA they were at risk of shutting down? And the county wanted to do something, but we didn't have a way to do that. In order for us to get the money timely, we'd had to go through the process. So that's how this fund was started.
But I understand that, to me, when you look at a budget, and maybe this is just my approach of it, I look at what the history has been on it, what was budgeted, what was approved, what was spent. And then I look at, in '21, there was $22,500 spent out of the $100,000 that was appropriated, but now we're asking for $200,000.
No, we spent it all.
Not according to the records for,
And that's
through
why
June 30th.
Oh, this year?
Yeah, it's 2021 this year.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so last year we spent it all, and then this year we're being conservative in the approach. I can't think of any organization that's come to us right now and says, hey, we're in a situation. Reach Services has. In full transparency, we met with Reach Services last week. They need $800,000 for a project. Well, we can't do that. If they needed $50,000 to help out through this fund, we can help them out. Since Commissioner Schweitzer's here now, he's been talking to some of the recovery substance abuse organizations. If they have a $10,000 need, that's something that collectively, the three of us can decide whether or not we're going to cut them a check. And more than likely, we would, to help them out. So that's what it's for. We don't want to burden the council with $2,000 and $5,000 and $10,000 ask. It's not a good use of everybody's time. But if we can help these organizations that support our community, this provides a good way to do that. And realistically, 10 grand nowadays doesn't go very far.
Maybe this would help. Can you provide them with a list of
Yeah.
the organizations you paid in 2020 and what you've done so far in 2021?
Yeah, that'd be great, even like for future, it just that way, we kind of have an idea, because I know even like as COVID was going around, I was getting like personal communication from different agencies that were like, can you help out, can you do this, and I mean, so, you know, a lot of it was.
In
just kind of
2020, we did Manor from 7, Rives Hall, 14th and Chestnut, Coda. I don't think that's it.
Did you do that, what is it, the business incubator?
Launch Terre Haute. You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. We did our Launch Terre Haute donation through that. That got us to 100,000. Or 80. I'll get you real numbers.
Anna from 7, Catholic Charity, 14th and Chestnut. Reach Services,
Reach Services. Reach Services, 20,000 for the day shelter.
Launch,
How much was Launch's contribution? 25,000?
West Central Investment Business Center,
5,000?
the Fair Association.
Did you catch that? Were you able to hear that?
The Chamber got 5.
Chamber, huh?
What is it? What's paid out of here, 5,000. Fair Hope Chamber of Commerce, January 10th,
Now,
2020.
that's my concern, as Brenda brought up. Hey, these are taxpayer dollars. We're in council for something else, but I don't know where it's at. I don't. And so that's my only question. Anytime I see a line item down here where it's.
What was the date, Chamber?
The date,
I gotta ask that question.
January 10th of 2020.
It's not just because you guys are here, it's the same process. I'm not picking, but,
No,
I mean, is that what a budget is?
I don't recall doing that.
That's what we're supposed
that's who the chamber, so I don't know.
So the Chamber one, I don't recall it. And I know it's icky for me to stand up here and say that. So I'm going to look into that.
So far in 21, it's been,
Because that was January 10th, the first part of the year.
so far.
Right out of the gate.
January, Children's Museum, 2,500, and the fair, 20,000.
Wait,
So what's your total?
the fairgrounds, 25,000.
22.5
So you've only spent 22.5 this year?
so far this year.
The fairgrounds, so the Vigo County Fairgrounds, which is technically the Wabash Valley Fairgrounds. Did Mike step out? Oh.
Yeah,
He just-
Wabash Valley
he
Fair
just-
Association.
Yeah, we talk about the fairgrounds and he leaves. He knows more about the
Not
fairgrounds
very
than
nice.
anybody in this room. Travis, you're on the board too, right? So the fairgrounds is, I think, the only private fair in the state of Indiana, with the exception of Lake County, which I could be wrong. I think Lake County has what I would call an interesting arrangement. If you ask anybody on the street, they think it's the Vigo County Fairgrounds. It's technically the Wabash Valley Fairgrounds. What we've done is looked at how we can help improve the fairgrounds, because even if it is run by a board, it's our community fairgrounds when you get down to it. They've looked at flipping it over to the county. I'm not sure that's in the county's best interest. Did you chuckle on that one? Yeah. So realistically, this relationship that we have going right now works. And we may not want the burden if, when we gave the fairgrounds 20,000, is that what it was the first time? They were out of money. And that was to help sustain them. If they were to go bust, they couldn't have moved forward with any kind of infrastructure improvements to host any events. You had water leaking, you had, and you currently have, as we did a tour last week, 2 weeks ago, many electrical issues. You and I did it. We did painting. Terrible job.
My concern is that's something that board budget comes in.
They can't be, they're not a government entity. So a way to do it is to do it through this setup, that if you know ahead of time, or if you entrust in our judgment,
Now, that's the question.
that, and I understand the trepidation on that one. Yeah, no, I know.
It's just disclosure, that's all I'm saying. You see that go from one number to double, you know, that's usually a concern on the budget. I have increased the nation up or down.
Or if it were a regular thing that you know, that you do give support to the fairgrounds on a regular basis because it's our fairgrounds kind of a thing, that's not a problem that I see in any way.
So realistically, and I'll go ahead and open this, could be uncomfortable conversation, depending on who's watching. The CVB should be throwing money towards the fairgrounds. Which was great, and that was an incredible windfall. The fact that redevelopment did that helped them out tremendously, which is what we had our meeting about, was how to invest that money. That, now, yeah, but as we discussed several times, and they can't rely on that. That was a good gift that's going to provide a new roof. The disposal fee that I mentioned, the $54,000, that's that project. But through some research, we were able to get it down to below $12,000. But that money is going towards rehabbing that building in the back, which is the banquet center, which is much needed. If it was not preserved, that building's going to collapse, and you can't build that building for less than probably $600,000 or $700,000 right now. So that money helped from redevelopment. The Convention and Visitors Bureau collects the innkeeper's tax. They get food and beverage tax, which is funding the convention center. But that makes sense. Having money go towards the fairgrounds from CVB makes sense because that's the entity that brings in heads and beds. No? What?
They don't get the,
So September 11th, you got to look at all the events that are occurring there. It's nuts. You got that Hobnob event that's occurring at the fairgrounds this weekend. If our fairgrounds was in poor condition, there's no way that Hobnob group, who enjoyed so much success in Illinois, would come to Vigo County. There's no way. But they approached us, and I say us because I'm on the board too. Is Mike still not back? They saw on social media the improvements that have been made, and that's what got them on the radar. And that was funny. But that's why the Hobnob came here, and a lot of people come in. The fairgrounds this year started charging a gate fee at the races, which caused a scuttle until it was sold to the people who were complaining that it's going to help pay for lights. And as a council member who also is a car racer, those lights at night are pretty important, aren't they? So they made an investment because they're able to raise the money for the lights. So I don't even know what the question was, but this 20,000 can help. Where you're going to see the biggest dent is at the end of the year, because in November, that's charity season. Everybody's saying, hey, we need help. So then we're able to help out. This stuff, January 10th, out of the gate.
I found the invoice for that.
What's
just
it for?
says community planning.
Oh,
Does that ring any
I know
bells?
exactly what that was for.
Okay.
That
It
was
says
for
community
the,
planning.
another good plan.
the airport?
No. What'd you call it? See you in, yeah, that was our contribution for that study, the See You in Terre Haute 2025 plan.
Yeah, that would be.
Do all of you have a
promotion.
copy of that? Our commissioner representative for the Chamber of Commerce will make sure that everybody gets one. Can we get him, Chris? Can we make sure that we get them each a copy of that plan? Okay, because Chris serves on that board. Commissioner Schweitzer, thank you. Yeah,
So Brendan, maybe this will help. Do you have some sort of methodology in how you determine who gets
That the
mean,
spin the
is-
wheel thing?
I mean, is there like a deadline to submit a request? You review them, or is it first come, first serve, or?
It's a need, an identified need. Last year, most of the stuff hit, November, December? We looked at who was in a pickle and jumped to help them out. We chose to do that versus having everybody come to us, and then we become a foundation.
Okay, and then my next question, maybe this will help them. Since you have more than doubled if you include your riverfront, it's 2.5 times the 2021 budget. Do you have a plan for that?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to BS you about it. No.
So how did you come up with, we get how you got the riverfront, but how'd you come up with the extra 100,000?
I don't recall, so I'm not going to make something up.
I mean, I see it a little bit differently just because of what I do, but our community is in such need, and I don't know. We're such in limbo with the funds that we're getting into, like what can they be used for and things like that, because when I think of some of these community organizations are just dying from this year, not being able to have fundraising events, things like that. So I get that. I think, better communication would definitely be helpful, just so we're kind of in the loop too, because sometimes people come up and thank us for stuff, and I'm like, okay. And, so that way we kind of know that it's, come from the county. But I would just kind of say, as we find out more about some of those funds that we'll have and how they're going to be used and things like that, it's going to be important to see if we have things that we can support with that.
We did it kind of as an experiment, and it worked. If you guys want to cut it all together, that's fine. As far as the extra $100,000, we'll spend it. We'll spend it by giving it to the right agencies. Chris and you can come in, bud. We talked fairgrounds. I can't believe you left during that. Chris and I attended, Commissioner Schweitzer and I attended a gathering, function at Next Step 2 Wednesdays ago. 6 senators from the state were there, mental health professionals. It was an eye-opener. To see what this group is doing is phenomenal and how it's benefiting our community. I won't go on my homeless speech because a lot of you know what I would say, but that issue's getting worse. Manna from 7, who we supported with $20,000, had a line from the church there by ISU all the way down to the train tracks of cars, because now you have to pull up in a car to get food on Friday. They'll give over 1,000 people on a Friday food. They have no funding other than donations. That $20,000 that we gave them was not for food, it's for refrigerators, freezers, because they have food that comes in, they don't have a place to store it. They were in a pickle, so we gave them money to go out and buy freezers, refrigerators. That's what that money's for. And if you look at, as you mentioned, our needs keep growing every day. Agencies pop up. When Brad and Judy and I sat down to figure out who to give the money to, they were almost easy discussions because all 3 of us were involved with those organizations in some form. Judy was heavily involved with 14th and Chestnut. She knew intimately what that group does. So it was an easy sell. She says, hey, they need $20,000. Good enough for us because she's involved with that group. I'm aware of it, not involved. Catholic Charities, I'm involved through Rives Hall, through my homeless efforts. I've got 14 agencies in our homeless coalition that I lead, Danielle Elkins leads. None of them received that money, except for Reach Services, who's doing the day shelter, which we have a challenge with right now, that we're trying to help them through. But by you providing those funds to us makes me feel good personally, because you trust that we'll use our best judgment to make sure these agencies are provided with income that they need to help them through. This is not a membership thing. This is not just throwing, I'll use Reach Services, $20,000 just because they do a good job. It's because they're in a situation.
Situation that they needed.
So I guess a way to call this would be the Commissioner Situational Fund. I'd love for you to. Can I go get a Coke now? Yeah.
Yeah. No TV here, but I-
Something Joey Lehman and I talked about this morning, because we're going through these ordinances and adjusting codes and wanting to update all of our codes and all kinds of stuff. All three commissioners want to redo the website. That's known. Brendan's wanted to do it for 2 years. Brad and Judy wanted to do it, but we're going to make it happen. So Marie, what I found out in Greene County is on their website, they have a community needs form. So if you're a nonprofit or an individual or whatever you're wanting to do, if you need $2,500 for building a handicap accessible ramp, the commissioners can decide when that form is submitted, it will go to what would be our Tammy, and she can give it to us, and then we'll have a meeting about it in the public and say, hey, these people came to us, they need $2,500 for this handicap accessible ramp. They're a private group, but they're doing something for maybe 10 people at this location, whatever. So we are discussing that form, but that won't happen until the website's done. We could get it on our website now, but our website sucks, I mean, let's just be honest, so.
It needs
It's
done.
worse than that.
But that is a way to kind of track those things.
Oh, and I'm not arguing. I'm just saying maybe keep us in the loop
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
things, because, as long as we see it, that's just my personal, as long as we see it being
And
beneficial.
we kind of talked to Susan about the Children's Museum $2,500 donation, but she had so many needs, it was too hard
Oh,
for
they
us to
were-
give us
yeah.
that this is what we're going to spend this
Yeah,
$2,500
I
on,
think
so.
that's what they do, and how they even set up little funds or little groups, pods for students during COVID. I mean, they were doing what they could to try to help out our students, and no doubt. The one I think that's jumping out at us, and I'm just kind of pushed on because I keep having to take personal days from school, and so I want to make sure I get this in as fast as possible. The one that's kind of jumping out to us is the economic development of LRNS. What, can somebody explain to me a little bit about what that is? Because that's a big jump.
Local road and streets.
That's the what?
Local roads and streets.
Okay.
So
That's
it's
money
for,
that we
it's
can put
highway
toward
dollars.
projects.
Highway dollars, okay.
A little history on that. Originally, back before Community Crossings grant, it was, I think it was the $1 million or 800,000, something like that. When they started appropriating funds for the Community Crossings grant, they reduced that so that they could stay within the revenue stream, and so, or at least closer to the revenue stream. And the commissioners every year ask for it to be back where it was. That's the history. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's normal.
they spend
So they
it.
can do more
That's what
roads.
they're doing.
They
That's what
ask,
they do.
council normally cuts it back, then they come back and they ask again, and the council
Well, we get into a
cuts it back.
situation every year where, I mean, we would all love every road to be paved, but we just can't do it. So we get to chip and seal situations, minor repairs, things like that. This helps with that.
So last year, had they asked for, I mean, we can't really see what they asked for. Had they asked for
I
an
think it was
amount?
50
this
grand.
year?
2021, they asked for
Oh,
a
they
million.
did, okay, and they'll get you 250, okay.
That history on those.
It's a big, yeah,
It's not a fact.
it's just a big jump.
Maybe this might be, Cheryl may come, but on here on my edit, it had a line item installed Christmas lights, $2,500, but there's not, but it's a zero there.
That,
I think they
well,
put it in the wrong fund.
when a claim was done, they put it out of the wrong fund, so because
don't
of
need it
that, that was
anymore.
corrected and adjusted to the right fund. But once you do that in this software, it kind of picks it up, and I tried to get some of those and clear them out so you would.
Oh, so that.
But they went ahead and, the commissioners went ahead and populated, but they didn't put it in the general fund budget, so I think the auditor switched it from,
Oh,
it was advertised in the edit fund,
where they asked for it,
but
but we moved it.
general fund is where it's traditionally funded
Paid
from.
Right.
And we will
Yes.
continue to pay for it out of that
The
fund.
discrepancy between the
Oh,
numbers.
it got paid from there, they put it in there, and I did check with Tammy, and that was, it was an error. It really should have been in the general fund, because that's where it normally is paid from.
It's not economic development to put the Christmas lights on.
The, sheet 3,000 that's laying in
Try as they
here,
may.
125, 60,000 all along for, says 14 Ford Road.
40 and Thorpe Road, we're going to contract with an engineering firm to redo that area. It's the West Vigo High School area. We need to do some ditching, some culvert pipes, a lot of things out in that area.
Roundabout.
Yeah, I mean, it's in bad shape, so that's what we'll use to pay that engineering company to do that.
That's why it's, and I like that if you put a, why the increase is from more than twice.
Well, you can quadruple that if you want to, so we can have more engineering done.
It just gives us a good reason and that we see what it is,
Yeah.
or if it's just the usual ask and then you usually don't get it, then that's big.
And some of these normally come from our engineer, and he'll put the notes on, because
So
kind of say,
that's-
what are you using it for?
Now, there again, is that something that we'll see that's in engineering as well?
No.
No.
We won't see
No.
that?
No,
No, this
that
was
comes
a
from the
project.
commissioners.
They're using edit funds for it.
Yeah, they're using edit fund. Some of those that you've seen in a couples, because they've been placed in both, and it's the council's decision on where to pay for those from.
And
But-
for the most part, those all deal with public safety.
You don't have naming rights in this, section.
It's gonna be the
Not
Chris-
yet, but I
Chris-
will say, just, we're
it's
taking
like-
over Highway 40, which is why Larry has put that improvement, or we're talking about that improvement, but we are wanting to get some signage for West Vigo out there. Yeah. So Interstate 4, or I call it Interstate 40, it's Highway 40, from Bennett Lane, or if you're familiar with Westero, A to Z Muffler, all the way to Interstate 70 will be under the county control. So we'll do the grass cutting, road improvements, and all that stuff. And they gave us $250,000 for it, something, a drop in the bucket for what it should really
And
take.
Remind me
There's
where
a drop
Bennett
in the
is. I know I
bucket.
should know this. I worked out there for years, but which one's Bennett?
It's the road right after A to
Right.
Z Muffler on the right. You go past Burger King, the car wash, and it's the
Oh,
first
okay,
right.
that's
at
what I
the
said, the
door.
one that kind of
Yeah.
goes, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Have control of it.
So from right here at the River Bridge to 150 in West Terre Haute is state controlled. From 150 to Bennett Lane is the city of Terre Haute, West Terre Haute.
West Terre Haute.
And then from Bennett Lane to the county line is Vigo County.
I did not know that, but they made a bunch of improvement over the last few years too, picked up the advance curve.
That's their way of getting us.
It's your guys, that's your guys' call.
There's no free lunch, just remember that.
Ownership is liability.
Maybe we'll make a better deal on that one.
Chris, do you have anything else that we need to know about?
No, I would say the $200,000, I can't remember where that derived from, but I will say that we will use it.
Oh, I bet you will.
I mean, Brendan gets texts every day, Mike gets emails every day, we get phone calls every day about these groups that, but our fear is if we open the floodgate, we'll have every $2,500, every $1,500 ask come our way, when we would rather, we want to give that to people, but we want that big ask where we can help a large amount of people instead of just giving it to these little bitty silos all over the community. So,
Yeah, we get inundated ones as well.
From the treasurer, from the auditor, from the commissioner.
And we probably do individual 100,000. So I totally get that. Your name gets out there, you give, everybody else finds out you give, right? So there's more. My last question on this, and this may be too, is for the parks. So the parks are going from 210 to 39 west on here. Now, will that be, does that stay up here or will that go in park?
Stays here.
Stays here.
Now, part of what they asked for, if you remember in the discussion, that includes a $250,000 grant match.
yeah, and that's for the property right across the river.
Yeah.
And so, and according to the discussion,
That's fine.
way back when, that they apply on 6/1 of '22. They should be awarded in September, so they're just wanting to have that grant match available in the event they're awarded the grant.
Right, and that makes sense. That's why I wanted to know, because I know that's one of the toughest things for me is that it's maybe advertised in a couple places.
This one's just advertised here, and it's been traditionally, started a few years ago, and
Yeah, anytime you
Commissioner
get a
Moore,
grant
he was on
pass-
the council then.
5 or 7?
They did a capital improvement plan, and so they were using that funding. They gave them extra funding to do that capital improvement plan. It was over so many years.
with the 20
Please question the Parks Department on any of their improvements that they have funded out of these things or any of their budget. But when about we had an ask out of Edit for $2 million for 1 year by the Parks Department, and we had some of the questions that you had. What are you going to do this year? What are you going to do? And it really came down to something where, as council, we allocated $400,000 for 5 years, and it was a 5-year plan, and of course they have been working and living off of that budget as well for those years. So, if you can figure out where to get that money out of the Parks Department, you're welcome to do it. That is your prerogative. But that's how that derived, and since we've had a change in park director, some of the emphasis has been changed. So I think that's an important consideration you need to look at. Some of that money was being used for expansion, and now the trend has been a little more towards infrastructure improvement with water and sewer. Those things that keep coming back up, and I know the Parks Department's in a pretty good-sized sewer project. They've found that they don't know what they're dealing with down in Fowler right now, so they're tracing it down. There was some sewage coming out from underneath the ground.
Yeah.
Some things like that. So, but like I say, the emphasis has been changed for water, sewer type of things, basic restroom facility improvement, campground expansion for larger campers. Not real sexy, but needed improvements. So.
Well, hopefully, Commissioner Kearns mentioned it earlier about this potential money from American Rescue Plan. But if any of it had COVID basis, outdoor space improvement is definitely something that is appropriate expenditures, from what I understand.
The Parks Department's got a couple of those things for COVID relief right now, right, Jim?
So,
That we're working on.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Can I
I'm,
ask
go ahead.
Can I ask one
Make
more
it quick.
question, just while it's in my brain? And this might be opening a can of worms, and if we have to do this after lunch, I get that. But I'm trying to look at Capital Improvement Board, because I'm really trying to understand a little bit more about that. Does it look like last year's 250,000 and this year's 500,000? Am I seeing that right, or no?
It's 500,000
It's
a year.
500,000, yeah.
A year?
Every year.
And it's
Yeah.
250 twice a year.
Got it. Okay, so,
And it got spent, it just got encumbered and then paid this January.
okay, and
Then-
that's
then-
something, from what I understand, they get funding from us, the
Yeah,
city.
the county gives
Yeah.
$500,000, the city gives $500,000, and CVB gives $250,000 for an annual payment of $1,250,000.
And then they also, don't they get like some of the funding from?
Food and
like,
beverage tax money goes to
beverage?
the convention center, yeah.
Okay, and then the board is the one that makes the decisions on how it's spent. I'm always trying to wrap my head, that's one I.
Oh,
get
it's
questions
frustrating.
about.
We're still trying to wrap our head around it.
But that's
Okay.
the commitment the county made.
Made to it,
How
okay.
many years?
20-year commitment, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's take our midday break at this time, and we'll come back at 1:30. Thank you very much.